Alrighty, welcome to the 71st edition of Before the Battle. My name is Nick Baldwin of BloodyElbow.com, and joining me as always is a writer for MMAfighting.com, Jed Meshew, alongside MMAsoccer.com's own Wesley Riddle. Jed, how's it going?
It's pretty good as I finish this Butterfinger. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, man, I'm not doing as good as you because I'm not eating a Butterfinger right now. Wes, how's it going?
You're actually doing better than I am because I'm done eating the Butterfinger, but now it's all stuck in my teeth and I'm on camera.
Good point.
I'm doing pretty good. Just hanging out. Ready to talk a 4:30 a.m. Eastern fight card that's featuring a girl on a 3-fight losing streak and Betch Correia.
Look at this. Jed Meshew is so embarrassed of his Butterfinger stuck in his teeth. He turns off his camera. Doesn't even let people see him when he's putting his fingers in mouth, getting the Butterfinger out of his teeth.
That's exactly what I was doing. Exactly what I was doing. I didn't want you guys to see me digging in my mouth with my hand like a savage.
That's a good start to the show. UFC Fight Night, 111 this weekend. But before we get into that, you know what we need to do. I believe you're at your parents' house, but do you have the results with you? You do. Good man.
I am, because we filmed. I was still at my parents' place last week, and I have ended up staying for a little while. I'm on vacation.
The background is different, so you're in a different room.
It is, and I have our results from last week. Let me actually pull. I don't have our DraftKings, but I can pull that up real quick, and it's super easy.
I won, just FYI.
Look, I know, but let me get there. It's a slow build. It's a process. So our picks winners, very important. Probably the most important title you could argue would be the pick winning title. And this week, the picks winner was, well, I'll be damned. Wes Riddle, stand up, take a bow, sir.
Once again,
with I think it's 10-2 performance.
Wow.
The only misses. Oh, I get 9-2 because the Goody Kim fight got withdrawn. You were on Goody. You were gonna be wrong there though. So you got saved the win, because had that fight happened, and we all know that Baby Stun Gun would have gotten the win there. Then you and I would have been tied because I only got 3 incorrect. You missed the Tim Elliott fight. All 3 of us missed the Tim Elliott fight. Let's be honest. Nobody really saw that happening. You also were extremely wrong about Ross Pearson. But other than that, just A for effort down the board, killing it all the way. I tied with you, Nicholas. We both got 3 wrong. As I said, we all missed the Elliott fight. I also missed the Steele, as did you, Nick. We both picked Dominic Steele to beat. Jumo came in, made his debut, and got that win. And then oh, I'm sorry. I beat you, Nick. I for some reason marked you as accurate, though you picked Derek Lewis. So I beat you with only 3 incorrects, missing on Steele, Elliott, and Lewis. You missed 4, missed on Steele, Elliott, Lewis. So Wes Riddle, you take the crown for this week. Congratulations, sir. Moving on to our DraftKings lineup. There were doubters. There were a lot of doubters. There were some doubters right here in this particular group discussion that he couldn't do it. He couldn't go back to back. He's been so anemic, so awful at DraftKings all year long. And I'll be damned if Nick Baldwin didn't back to back hold the DraftKings crown with his team. Derek Brunson, Tim Elliott, Derek Lewis, Askin Mokhtarian, Vince Pichel, and Alexander Volkanovski all did the damn thing for you. Really, your DraftKings team was not a sensational team. It was a boom or bust team. You had some very high highs. Pichel, Volkanovski, and Brunson all got a lot of points for you, over 100. And on the backswing to that, Mokhtarian, Derek Lewis, and Tim Elliott all did extremely poorly for you. But I was better than Wes Riddle, who came in second place, actually only trailed by about 15 total points. Wes was right in there. He also had Derek Brunson, and he had Ion Cutelaba, who I believe was the highest scoring person of the entire event. And then Tim Elliott, just a dagger for you. Mark Hunt got an okay set of points. Luke Jumo got some points. Ashan Mokhtarian brought it down. And me, for the second week in a row, I've done very poorly in DraftKings. DraftKings, where I was making my hay, I was, 5 times in a row or something absurd like that, just dominating the DraftKings belt. And it was just poor for me. Alexander Volkanovski and Derek Brunson both turned in great performances, but Tim Elliott getting insta-tapped, Chanmi Jian, Derek Lewis, Ashkan Mokhtarian, all three of us had Ashkan Mokhtarian. That's an interesting decision by us right there. Because he was a big dog and got pretty soundly defeated. But yeah, that's our DraftKings results. I'm excited about this week, though. I'm feeling pretty good about my lineup. So I think I'm coming back for the crown. But that's how we're doing right now.
Oh, I'm
sorry. I also forgot the bonuses. None of us got fight of the night bonuses correct because for some reason Derek Lewis, Mark Hunt was established as fight of the night. None of us got any bonuses correct. I had Tim Elliott Ben Nguyen as fight of the night. Obviously an instant tap, doesn't get any fight of the night honors there. Ben Nguyen did get a performance bonus, but I also had Derek Brunson and Derek Lewis as my performance bonuses. Derek Brunson, you could argue, deserved a performance bonus, but that went to Ben Nguyen and Daniel Hooker. Wes, you had Dong Hyun Kim Gotti. Obviously, that fight didn't even happen, so you super missed. And then you had Brunson and Elliott as Brunson and Elliott. Neither guy got performances. Again, we all could have been right on Brunson because you as well, Nick, had Brunson in your performance list, also with Tim Elliott. And your fight of the night was Hooker Pearson. Hooker did get a performance bonus, but not a fight of the night bonus. So our bonuses were a miss. Wes, you're the picks king, and Nick, still that DK king. So way to go, guys.
Well, you said a second ago that you feel more confident this week in your DraftKings team. Well, you both of you said last week that both of you said you thought you were going to lose. You didn't like your team at all, and look what happened. You were right. So maybe Jed, things will turn around now that you're confident again. Confidence is key, or I'll just say champion. That's probably what's going to happen. So
confidence is key. You're right.
I'm going to say champ.
Sure. Whatever makes you feel safe and comfortable. Just know I'm coming for you.
Make me believe anything. All right, let's dive into UFC Fight Night 111. Takes place from Singapore this, Friday night, Saturday morning, depending where you are on this globe. Main event is Holm versus Correia in a pivotal women's bantamweight matchup. Maybe not the main event some people are looking for, but still could be interesting. The entire card, top to bottom, is actually pretty fun. Main card's really cool, really good. Prelims are really fun. Justin Scoggins and Yuta Sasaki stands out. And you can't complain about Takanori Gomi, Jingliang Li, or Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres either. So let's dive in. We're going to kind of go through the first two fights super quickly. They're kind of unknown fighters. Making her debut, Ji Yeon Kim taking on Lucy Pudilova, the Bullet at 135. We're just going to say a pick for this. Jed, who do you got here?
Well, when you say we're just going to say a pick, I say you're not the boss of me. This was actually like the one early card fight I've had time to do some tape study for yet. I looked up some of Ji Yeon Kim. She's a grappler. Takedowns from the clinch is like that's sort of what she does. She used to compete in jewels and stuff, and she's a pretty decent grappler. Lucy Pudilova fought Lena Landsberg in her UFC debut. Aside from that, she lost a decision pretty justifiably, and I think that could totally happen here. It's sort of the same thing, where Ji Yeon Kim can just get her up against the cage, kind of wear her down, maybe work some duck under takedowns, sneak to the back. I just kind of think she's like good enough to accomplish her goals here, even if Pudilova is probably a better kickboxer and a decent defender of takedowns. Like, I don't know. Basically a shot in the dark here, but give me Ji Yeon Kim because let's be fun.
All right, Wes, got a pick?
Yeah, I'm picking Lucy Pudilova in this one, and that's because kind of watching in the similarities between Lena Landsberg and this Ji Yeon Kim. I think Lena's a little bit better of a grappler than Kim, and Lena was barely able to pull that one off by doing a lot of clinch work. Kim, if she does the same, I don't think she's going to be able to handle some of the striking of Pudilova. And for that reason, I've got Pudilova by decision. I think maybe though she'll probably lose the first round, so I'm going to take her by 29-28 unanimous.
All right, my pick here is Pudilova as well, just because I know who she is. Moving on, we got Naoki Inoue taking on Carl's John de Thomas Golden Boy, two newcomers in the flyweight division. Always interested to see some flyweight debutantes. Jed, you got a pick.
Debutantes, that is such a man. Look at you being all frosty, dude. So the extent of my knowledge about this fight is that both of these are children. Like, Nick, when were you born?
2000s.
Damn, we're so getting close to the time when there's going to be a UFC fight at your age. Like, Carlos John de Tomas, I think he's like 19. Like, he is a friggin' baby. And Naoki Inoue is not much older. Like Inoue is 19. I just looked it up. Inoue is 19 and Thomas is 20. So, dude, neither of them have done anything anybody knows about. Inoue has competed a bunch in deep, which is not like the most sterling of competition he's faced. But he's, won his fights there. Similarly, Carlos John Tomas undefeated in some organization called URCC. So, like, I don't know why this is a fight that's happening. I'm assuming it's happening just because this is a Singapore card and they're looking for like to flush out the undercard of local talent or some shit like that. I don't know. I'm literally making this decision based purely on the fact that Inoki has 4 inches of reach advantage. And to a lesser extent, he's an enormous betting favorite. So clearly somebody knows something. He's a minus 270, minus 300 betting favorite. So I'm picking Inoue because, I mean, he's a minus 300. Clearly he's got to win.
West, Inoue or de Thomas?
Yeah, the thing that stood out to me just kind of looking at the tail of the tape is that Inoue does have that reach advantage. Also, Inoue has quite a bit of submission victories already on his resume, and this is just a fight I don't really know anything about. I don't know anything about either, and I've never heard about either pretty much ever until this fight was announced. I'm going to go Naoki Inoue. Sorry, I don't really have a breakdown, but I feel like none of us do. But it looks like
you might be right about that one.
Oh yeah, just looking at the records, I mean, Naoki seems to be more of a finisher, and I feel like the odds have him as a favorite by quite a bit. A lot of people are picking him, so I feel like people, like Jed said, know what they're talking about. So I'm going to go Naoki Inoue. I think it's going to be probably a fun fight. I mean, all of the time that we see these guys come in who are fighting in front of probably, I guess, their hometown, probably likes to come in banging. So this could be a pretty exciting fight, but between two no-names, or at least in the regards to UFC. So, but I'm going to take Inoue by a second-round submission.
Well, I would hope the odds makers know what they're talking about, but they don't always. I like Inoue here because, again, kind of like I saw the odds at minus 250-ish, and I figured, oh, okay, so at least one person who set those odds did a bit of research, found something, and figured, all right, this guy should be favored by 2.5 to 1, so I'm going to trust that. They're not always right, but he has more experience. He has the advantages in, physically tall and the reach. So, and he has more finishes, so give me Inoue here. He'll probably get a submission, but really that's just saying because he has 7 out of 10 wins by sub. Next up, we got a fairly interesting bantamweight matchup between Kwan Ho Kwok the Handsome taking on Russell Doan. Jed, do you like the slight underdog here in Russell Doan, the American, or do you think the Korean gets his first UFC victory?
I mean, what I want to talk about in this fight is how is Russell Doan still employed by the UFC? He's on a 4-fight losing streak. I would imagine it's because he fought Mirsad Bektic on short notice, and that's a fight that he was basically, it was known he was going to lose that fight. I guess maybe that's right. I mean, he was a very, very lame to slaughter in that fight. But, yeah, I'm actually going to take Doan here. I think this is a pretty close fight. I mean, look, we haven't seen a ton of Doan's actually been hanging around the UFC and, decent level of fighters for a while. But we haven't seen a ton of Kwan Ho Kwok. But what we have seen is that he is just an atrocious defender of takedowns. Brett Johns put him on his ass a ton in their fight. And Russell Doan is not like the best wrestler in the world, but he's a very competent wrestler and an active one. I think, I just think that's enough. Like if Kwan Ho Kwok has improved substantially in that regard, then that'll help. But I think Doan's going to be a little bit bigger of a man. I think he's going to employ a grappling game, and he's going to break that long string of losses he has and kind of hang around the UFC and maybe send Kwan Ho Kwok, maybe send him packing.
Yeah.
I would assume he gets cut with a loss here. So, yeah, Doan is my pick by decision.
All right, Wes, Russell Doan or Kwan Ho Kwok?
Yeah, Russell Doan has been pretty much thrown to the wolves. 3 of his last 4 fights, one was against Yuriel Contra, the other was against Pedro Munoz, and then this last fight that he was in was against Mirsad Bektik. So he's been fighting some pretty decent competition, and he has been losing them, but still, I mean, that shows that he's he's still active up in there and still competing with the best. But, I mean, his last win came back in 2014 over Marcus Brimage in a fight where I thought he lost. I actually remember that fight, and I think a lot of people thought Brimage won that. But this is a hard one to call. Jed, you said Doan is a pretty active wrestler, and Kwan really struggles with his takedown defense. I think he was taken down maybe up to like 15 times in that fight with Brett Johns. And
1 million times.
It was absolutely ridiculous, and he just couldn't stop anything. And even when Brett Johns kind of slowed down in that 3rd round, he was still getting taken down, and Brett Johns was still a bit upon takedowns. But the good thing about Kwok is that he is a very decent with his output and a pretty active striker, and that could possibly do something to Doan if Doan keeps shooting him for those takedowns and Kwok has worked on his defense. I'm going to go Kwan Ho Kwok. I have him by a 2nd-round knockout, but that's kind of risky just because Russell Doan has actually never been stopped by strikes. He's usually been finished by submissions, and Kwan Ho Kwok is more of a predominant striker. But I think that if Kwok can maybe stuff those takedowns, he has a good chance of getting a finish. But then again, it's going to be tough. I think we're going to have to see some big improvements with whatever he was able to utilize in this camp in order to stop some of those takedowns. But I'm going to go Kwok. I'm going to assume that maybe he's worked on that a little bit, and I have him by finish in the 2nd.
And this is a pretty close fight, and I think one that could actually play out fairly interesting. Kwok, the one thing I know about him is that, as you guys both talked about, he has terrible takedown defense. Barring the fact that Brett Johns is actually a very good wrestler, former Titan FC bantamweight champion, good fighter in general. So that wasn't that big of a loss or a setback for Kwok, who that was also his debut. But he definitely needs to work on that takedown defense. Russell Doan isn't a fantastic wrestler, but I think he's a good enough wrestler to get Kwok down and take him down and probably hold him down, or if Kwok gets up, then take him down again. I think Russell Doan grinds out a victory here. If Kwok keeps this one standing, he's seemingly probably a better striker than Doan is, and probably can outpoint Doan, maybe even finish Doan. Doan is fairly tough, but he's been finished a lot, so although, as Wes did say, that a lot of that is by submission, so perhaps not. But I do like Doan nonetheless. I like him by unanimous decision. I like him via wrestling, pretty much. I like him to grind out a win here and save his UFC career. Moving on, we got a welterweight matchup between the Leech, Li Jingliang, taking on newcomer Frank Camacho, stepping up on short notice for Canadian Jonathan Munier, who fell to the matchup with an injury. Jed, do you like the Chinese, the Leech, or do you like the newcomer here, Frank Camacho?
Well, I will tell you, we've all been around the game a little bit. We know some things, and what we all know is that MMA math is always 100% correct. And Jianling Li, the Leech, he got choked out by Keita Nakamura. Frank Camacho coming in on short notice, but you know what? Frank Camacho has a unanimous decision win over Keita Nakamura in PXC. I'm just saying, it seems like it's pretty obvious to say that Frank Camacho beat the guy who beat the guy, so he's gonna beat the guy. Despite that, though, I'm gonna be risky. I'm gonna be a bit wild card here. I'm gonna pick Jianling Li. Maybe it's because he's an enormous almost minus 500 favorite. Maybe it's because Frank Camacho is coming in on short notice. Maybe it's just because Zhang Li actually is like a good, fun-ass fighter who's beaten some decent competition, lost, to Keita Nakamura and got a split decision loss to Nordine Taleb, who pretty good fighter. Also has a win over Luke Jumo, who last week, made a good, impressive start to his UFC career. So I just think he's just a better fighter all around. I'm going to be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong because, as we all know, MMA math 100% accurate all the time. But give me Li Jiangling decision.
Camacho was actually on Tough back in 2012. I did not know that.
Yeah. Who's that? Wasn't that the Carwin season or whatever?
Yes. He lost to Neil Magny.
Oh, see, look, he can't even beat Neil Magny. He sucks.
That's funny. Wes, do you like the newcomer here, Camacho, to get the big upset, or does Li Jingliang leech his way to a win?
It's always hard to pick against the Leech because he's probably one of the most exciting fighters in the division. Is he still at welterweight? Is this in welterweight?
It is, yes.
All right, just making sure. Jing Liang is really fun to watch. Probably one of the most exciting strikers, just because he's so crazy with some of the stuff that he throws, and he's willing to take risks. And that's actually one thing that cost him in the Nakamura fight, a fight that he was probably up on the scorecards, but I can't really remember what happened. But when Nakamura submitted him, that was actually my pick for submission of the year in 2015. It was unbelievable to watch Nakamura win that one. But Frank Camacho, I don't really know too much about him. I never watched that season that he was on The Ultimate Fighter in the Carwin season. But I do know one thing about Camacho, and that's that he has some fantastic ground and pound. That if he's going to be able to take lead down to the ground, I feel like Camacho could definitely get a stoppage here by ground and pound strikes. He is just a very powerful fighter. He does have a lot of strength in his hands, and that's why so many victories on his resume have come by finish. So definitely has the possibility to get a victory here, but I don't think it's going to happen if this fight stays standing. I think he's going to have to look for the takedown. If he can, I think Camacho can definitely get a victory here. But I'm going to go Jingliang Li in this one. I like his style. I still feel like he has some good potential, and I feel like that this is a fight that he definitely could win just because he's been fighting some better competition recently, and still just continues to improve. Even though his last fight, he does kind of have I wouldn't say a questionable chin, but he seems to get tagged sometimes. So this could be a closer fight than we think. I think the odds may be or should be a little bit closer, but I'm going to take the Leech by we'll go a second round knockout.
Yeah, I'm on the Leech hype train here as well. He's nearly a minus 500 favorite, a bit wide. I think a lot of that is because Frank Camacho is stepping up on short notice. He's a newcomer, but the guy has a lot of experience. He's stepping up with a record 20-4. That's a very good record. And I could see him beating Jing Liang. He seems to be fairly well-rounded. He has a number of submissions under his belt, but most of his wins come by way of TKO knockout. I think to beat Jing Liang, I think he probably has to hurt Jing Liang. We have seen the Leech hurt before. Was it his last fight he was rocked in? Or maybe,
Bobby Nash, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. So I think similar situation will have to happen if Camacho wants to get the job done. I don't, maybe he outpoints Jing Liang, en route to a decision, but probably not. Jing Liang has more ways to win. He can take this to the mat. I think Jing Liang probably takes this to the mat. He has a fairly solid wrestling game as well. He's not a bad striker either. I like his he's a strong guy. I like Jing Liang to submit Camacho, I think. But it really wouldn't be too surprising if Camacho does better than expected. My prediction my prediction is Jing Liang by submission, but offside prediction is that Camacho looks better than a plus 400 favorite. That's sort of what I think going in. Moving on, we got a really fun flyweight matchup between Justin Scoggins and Yuta Sasaki. Scoggins 11-3. from the States and Sasaki from Japan at 19-4-2. Jed, you like Scoggins or Sasaki?
I'm gonna make history here on Before the Battle, and I'm gonna predict that this fight doesn't even happen. Justin Scoggins blows weight so bad because he physically can't make 125 pounds that Sasaki refuses to fight him because he's so overweight, or that he blows weight so bad that he goes to the hospital or gets like an IV that's unacceptable, or whatever, and the fight is called off. The fact that Justin Scoggins is returning to flyweight, I did coverage for UFC 201 when he was supposed to fight Ian McCall. And the day before, on that Thursday, we did UFC Media Day, and Scoggins is enormous. Sasaki's somehow like a taller man here, but Scoggins does not look like he can make 125 when I was walking up to him. And I talked to them and was like, hey, man, how's it going? Like, you've had some issues with your cuts before. Like, how you feeling? Because he had this kind of like smirk about him that he just like, it's fine or whatever. And then he dodged the shit out of the question. Was like, oh yeah, blah, blah. I'm a growing boy. I might not fight too much longer. And this was back in fucking July last year or whenever the hell it was. And he was telling me before at that point he knew he was going to blow weight, I'm pretty sure. But he was like, yeah, my future is probably at 135. I just don't think I can make the weight. And, he went up to 135, caught himself an L, and I guess decided, well, if I can't win, I'm just going to try and make the cut again. I'm not like you, Nick. I'm not militant about people weight cutting. I don't give a shit. But I just don't think Justin Scoggins can make the weight. Like, I just don't think he can do it. It's just not. It's so ridiculous for him to be trying to make this weight when he doesn't need to. If he does, good for him, I guess. But like, I'm predicting he doesn't make weight. If you're gonna force my hand, make a decision. I'm picking Scoggins because Sasaki can't do anything to Scott. Like, he can't take Scoggins down, and he's gonna get busted up on the feet. Like, that's my breakdown of that as far as it goes. But I think Scoggins doesn't even make it to the cage.
Alrighty, Wes. I guess part A is, does this fight happen? And B, who do you think wins if it does?
Well, I never really think of fights like that in that regard, but Jed, you probably got the best point I've ever heard, and that is definitely a possibility. And a good possibility, also just to kind of back that up, is the fact that Scoggins' last fight came at 135 pounds. So he went up, and that was after the Ian McCall when he tried to fight him. Then he fought Pedro Munoz. So now he's coming back down. When you make that kind of jump, I don't know how that's going to affect your body or how that's going to be, especially when you gain muscle mass and try to lose that back. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I might agree with Jed on this one. I think there's a good possibility, but I didn't think about that coming in. If I do have to give a pick, though, I'm going to go Scoggins. I think he's a better athlete. I think he's a better fighter. He has really good stand-up. Also is pretty crafty with his takedowns. But one thing that kind of concerns me with picking him is that he's shown some fight IQ mistakes, and that's because in the fights that he's winning, he tries to look for takedowns in fights he doesn't need to against guys who have good guillotine chokes, and it cost him in both the John Moraga fight and a fight I thought he was up in, and also his last fight against Pedro Munoz, where I thought he won the first round. Sasaki is a pretty long and lanky fighter, has a pretty good reach, and is pretty crafty at trying to get out from the bottom, and also is good at popping up his legs and trying to look for submissions. So maybe he could catch Scoggins just being careless with a guillotine choke or some kind of scramble that happens with Scoggins looking for a takedown. But like I said, I think Scoggins is the better athlete. If he does make it to the fight, I think Scoggins will win this one. Don't know if it'll come by a finish or not because Sasaki is a pretty durable fighter, but and for that reason, I'm going to be picking Scoggins by decision. But I think this will be a pretty fun fight for however long it lasts if Scoggins can make weight.
Well, I saw on Twitter today, Justin Scoggins' father, Chris, said that Scoggins, as of sometimes today, was 129 already. So it seems like the cut's going all right. But as we know, sometimes those last pounds are the ones that, well, just don't go off. So, it's possible. Scoggins certainly is a huge flyweight, has missed weight, has, look at the Ian McCall situation last year that Jed already talked about. So, yeah, it's possible. But under the, assuming it does happen, it does go as planned, my pick here is Justin Scoggins. I mean, he's a big favorite for for good reason. The odds are a bit wide, but can't complain too much. Scoggins, he's much better on the feet. Sasaki's best chance here is some sort of submission on the mat, but Scoggins, it's interesting what Jed said about the fight IQ. I've noticed that. I mean, look at the Pedro Munoz fight. That ended in the second round, if I'm not mistaken, and Scoggins, I think, clearly won the first and was winning the fight as a whole, and then just got, made a mistake and got tapped out. So, a similar situation could happen here. But I think Scoggins is smart enough to keep this on the feet. I think he look at the Ray Borg fight. Ray Borg, at that time, mostly a grappler. Scoggins, a bit of everything. But hey, if I can beat the guy on the feet, let's just do, let's do that. If I have a better chance in a certain discipline or area, just stay there. And I think that's kind of what's happens here. I think Scoggins keeps this one standing. I think he outpoints Sasaki has. He doesn't actually have a reach advantage, which is shocking because he's a huge flyweight, but I guess so is Sasaki, who has moved up and been a bantamweight in the past as well. So that's not going to be a factor, really. I mean, it could be for Sasaki, but Scoggins should be able to outpoint him. I like his kicks a lot. His boxing's pretty good as well. So Scoggins by decision, maybe some sort of finish, but yeah. So Scoggins by decision is my pick, 30-27 most likely. Alrighty, moving on, we got Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres taking on newcomer Rolando Dai in the featherweight division. Jed, off-air, I believe. Yeah, off-air, I think, just earlier. You said the Dai is actually not that bad. What do you know about the guy, and how does he match up against the American Alex Caceres?
He's not that bad. Yeah, I did say that off-air. He's... I didn't see a ton of him because I couldn't find like some of his more recent fights. I could find a lot of his older fights. So I'm also sort of extrapolating a little bit there in that if he looks cleaner further back, then he's likely improved some as well. But even then, like he's just like a competent kickboxer. He got really good low kicks. Like that was the thing that struck out, is that he ended combinations with low kicks and that they were very sharp. Which I think can be an effective strategy against Alex Caceres. I believe Dai is a short notice fighter on this card. Am I correct in that assessment, Nick?
I
think
I
Caceres
believe
was supposed to
so.
fight somebody else.
Caceres, I think, was supposed to fight a different fighter from possibly China.
He's supposed to fight Guan Wang.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah. So I don't know how much time Dai had to prepare for this. Look, Dai is not a great fighter, but I think he's a serviceable fighter. I'm really bad at picking Alex Caceres fights. Like, I guess I'm not bad at picking them, but for a stretch, I think I thought he was better than he was. And, maybe it was just like the Sergio Pettis upset was just like kind of threw me for a loop or whatever, but maybe Pettis was just too green at that point. I don't know. It's tough for me to call, man, because I think so. I don't want to say I think little because it seems rude, but I feel like I'm just always I overestimated Caceres for so long that now maybe I underestimate a little bit. But at the same time, he has a wealth of experience here, and Dai is making his UFC debut. I think Caceres still will have physical advantages. And I think ultimately, he's going to be able to win the striking exchanges on the feet, and thus win the fight. But if he just chops Alex Caceres' legs down, don't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. So Caceres by decision is my pick, but fun happens.
All right, Wes, you got Alex Caceres or Rolando Dai, the newcomer?
This is a interesting fight, and I think one that will probably be a contender for a fight of the night bonus because both are pretty entertaining fighters in their own regard. Both have pretty interesting styles that they like to implement when they step into the cage. I beat Caceres, and that's based off his experience. He's a pretty crafty striker. He's not really the best sometimes with defending takedowns, even though his takedown defense is pretty decent. Not the greatest, but pretty decent. He's taking too many risks where I feel like if he's a little bit more reserved, he could possibly pull out victories in them. And I feel like that's cost him in quite a bit of his fights, but has also helped him in some of his fights, as we saw with the Sergio Pettis fight, where he was able to come back in that third round and get a finish that no one really saw coming. But he then I could say other things, like in the Cole Miller fight, he was dominating up until the last minute of the fight, and then he almost got rear naked choked or armbarred, or one of the two, in the last round in a fight that he was pretty much dominating. So, like I said, he's willing to take risks, and that's good, but that could definitely cost him in a fight. Rolando Dai, is a pretty decent fighter. He's not that bad from some of the fight footage that I've seen too. He's pretty good with his counters, is a really tight boxer, loves to punch, but kind of engage when he goes in and fight at close distances, and that could be hard going against Caceres, who likes to move around and keep his distance with kicks and also his punching power and kind of just his lanky style. So for that reason, I'm going to go Caceres. I saw Dai is just a pretty tight fighter, but he is pretty powerful. So maybe Dai could get a knockout victory in this one, since Caceres doesn't really have the, I wouldn't say the greatest chin, but he has been stopped before against fighters who do have pretty powerful hands. So maybe Dai can get a finish in this one, but I'm going to go Caceres based off the experience and his lankiness to keep Dai back and probably point his way, but in an exciting way, to a decision victory.
Yeah, like Alex Caceres here as well. You know, a lot of intangibles in this one. He has more experience. He's been in there before in the UFC. He's fought, not the best of the best, but he's fought very good talent. Jason Knight and Yair Rodriguez are his latest losses. So, a lot of, two top guys right there. Rolando Diaz stepping up with short notice as well. I want to say Caceres might be this whole fight was sort of put together sort of late, I think, or at least it was added to the UFC.com site late, or I don't know, kind of late, weird fight. I don't know exactly, but I'm just sort of gut feeling. But yeah, Dai for sure is stepping up, as you guys said. Caceres was supposed to fight someone else. I think Caceres outpoints Dai on the feet. I admittedly don't know tons and tons about Rolando Dai. But Caceres, he's a bad style matchup for a lot of fighters, and I will assume that's sort of the case here. I think he outpoints Dai on the feet. Dai seems to be fairly well-rounded. He has 2 wins out of his, not the best record, 8-4-1 and 1 no contest. Seems like a guy who isn't terrible, but is probably being brought up just because it's on short notice and because it's in Singapore. He has 2 wins by knockout, 2 by sub, and 4 by decision. So it seems fairly well-rounded. Caceres is super funky. He beats, fairly good guys. Cole Miller being his last win. I'll go Bruce Leroy by, he probably gets a finish. If not, he's going to be, I suspect he'll get a lot of points, on DraftKings. So either a finish or a lot of volume and grappling exchanges en route to a decision win. All right, next up we got Cyril Asker, Silverback, taking on Walt the Big Ticket Harris in a heavyweight matchup. Obviously, not for the title. This is a somewhat low-level heavyweight matchup, as I like to say, and I'm not too good at predicting these types of heavyweight fights, so we'll see what happens. But Jed, do you like the fairly big favorite here, Walt the Big Ticket Harris, or do you think the Frenchman, Cyril Asker, can get the upset?
Dude, I don't have a fucking clue. It's just, dude, this is low-level heavyweight MMA, and fucking anything can happen here, man. This is going to be a striking affair, and whoever lands the big punches early, I think Walt Harris has more power than Cyril Asker. I think Cyril Asker throws a lot more volume than Walt Harris. And it's not like Walt Harris has some stalwart chin. Nikita Krylov beat the hell out of him in a minute or however the hell that was. So Palele stopped him as well. It's the same time, Cyril Asker is a light heavyweight masquerading as a heavyweight. It's 6 feet tall and a soft 240. I don't know, man. I'm gonna assume that Walt Harris's power makes the difference here, I guess. Just because if he hits Cyril Asker, I think he can finish Cyril Asker like Jared Cannonier did. But dude, this is a fucking coin flip. I'm honestly a little bit surprised that, are just straight up, Walt Harris shouldn't be a minus 300 favorite over anybody.
No, I agree. I've seen a lot of people, betting community on Twitter, MMA betting community, they're super high on Walt Harris for the most part. I don't understand it. Cyril Asker, he's not, compared to Walt Harris, he's not a bad fighter.
he's a big athletic guy with natural power, and like that's cool. But this, I just at the same time, like this dude, if I recall correctly, I think he was kind of losing to Cody East, who isn't a bad fighter, until he was beating Cody East. Like knocking out Chase Sherman doesn't mean a damn thing to me, except for the fact like Chase Sherman is a really tough guy, but like I don't know, man. I'm taking Walt Harris. I don't think he should be this big a favorite over anybody, like any competent cage fighter. Um, Dude, whoever lands the first real big shot is going down. CL Asker throws a lot more, so he could totally do it. But again, I think he's really a light heavyweight. I think Walt Harris is a legitimate heavyweight. I think he throws really hard, so I'm going to assume that's enough to get it done. Walt Harris by KO, early second round.
Alrighty, Wesley Riddle, Walt Harris, or Cyril Asker?
I don't know if I'm crazy, and I wouldn't say that I disagree with you guys, but I think Walt Harris has the abilities to be a really decent fighter and possibly a top 15 in heavyweight, which isn't really saying much, but I like the guy. I think he has the capabilities of being a decent fighter, like I said, but there's two big problems with him, and one of them you can't fix, and that's his chin. And we've seen him get knocked out quite a bit. And then the second thing is that now we haven't seen it too much recently, but he used to exert way too much power early, and then he would have no cardio going into the later fights. So, I mean, Harris has improved quite a bit from where he was when he first came in the UFC, and then he got cut, and then he fought Soa Palele. After that, he's kind of improved quite a bit as a fighter. And like I said, I feel like he has some capabilities of becoming a decent athlete, but this is going to be a fight where, again, he's fighting a guy who has powerful hands, and Harris does not have the best chin. Jed, said whoever lands the first punch is probably going to get the knockout, and I 100% agree on that one. But because I think Walt Harris does have some pretty decent capabilities, and I feel like if somebody's going to be able to evolve from a performance, I feel like Walt might be the guy to do it. So I'm going to take Walt Harris by first round knockout, but then again, it's hard to trust that chin.
Yeah, I'm going Walt Harris here as well. I think he's the harder puncher. I know he's the bigger guy. He's the more athletic guy. Maybe, although Asker is somewhat athletic for heavyweight too. If I recall correctly, he's somewhat light on his feet. He's a fairly small heavyweight, so that certainly helps. Harris is a big heavyweight for the most part. He has a 3-inch reach advantage. He is taller by 3 inches as well. So I like those stats for Harris. He doesn't have the best output. The volume's fairly low for the big ticket, but I think his boxing in general, the actual techniques getting better, working in an American Top Team with some of the best boxing coaches in the world certainly helps. I like Walt Harris by knockout here. I'm surprised, though, that he's that big of a favorite. I would never bet, like, Harris minus 300 parlay. No way. He's not good enough for a parlay, and that's way too wide for, like, a straight bet or anything like that. So, kind of crazy odds, but I guess I got to agree with him and go with Walt Harris by knockout. Next up, the featured UFC Fight Pass prelim, Takanori Gomi, the Fireball Kid, taking on John, the Super Saiyan Tuck. Jed, do you like John Tuck, or would you like the big underdog, the Fireball Kid himself, Takanori Gomi?
This fight just makes me sad. Like that's what I like. What I would like is for this to be the fight in the card. UFC run is so bad. Like it's just so. I didn't think about it until like right before we filmed this. And I obviously haven't taken the time to investigate this, but like legitimately, like honestly, he might be the worst fighter in UFC history. And I don't mean that as skill wise. Obviously, he's a lot better than a lot of one and done guys, but like he basically gets to keep fighting for the UFC because of what he meant to the sport of MMA years ago. Like he made his debut. Kenny Florian just beat the shit out of him. That was when Kenny Florian was at the height of his powers. He comes in, he knocks out Tyson Griffin, which is basically at this point like the last throwback talk fight. Just a big ass punch on a guy that people still respected. But then after that, Clay Guida and Nate Diaz beat the hell out of him. Beats Iji Mitsuoka, who gives a fuck. Wins a split decision against Mac Danzig. Loses to Diego Sanchez. His last win was in 2014 against Ike Valley Flag. And then since then, he got his doors blown off by Miles Jury, Joe Lozon, and Jim Miller. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 losses versus 4 wins. And so he's 4-7 in the UFC. And his wins are not good wins for the most part. And his losses are all to good people, but brutal losses. Like, it just kind of hurts. It hurts my feelings because Talk was Talk. There was a time when he was Fireball Kid. He's, arguably the best lightweight on the planet. He wasn't. BJ was always the best lightweight on the planet, but still, like, he was putting together that Pride run. He was doing violent fucking shit, and it was awesome. And now he's gonna fight John Tuck, who's like fine, but that's it. Like, John Tuck is just fine, and he's gonna fucking lose to John Tuck, and it's gonna be so disappointing because, like, honestly, John Tuck, like, I want to pick Tuck. I really do. Like, if Gomi could keep this standing and actually, like, try and strike, I think he can outstrike John Tuck. But, and, John Tuck doesn't even shoot a lot. Like, he doesn't wrestle all that well or actively. But, like, I just don't know that he's ready to pull the trigger or do any of the things that it requires to win fights these days. Basically, I would pick most warm bodies over Tuck at this point, especially considering the way his last 3 fights have looked with, Miller, Lozon, and Jury just, like, savaging him. Like, those fights were not even close to being close. Like, they are all first round just beat downs under, like, 2 minutes apiece. Like, it's so, look, if John Tuck gets this to the floor, he's a BJJ brown belt. Tuck has not looked good on the floor at all as of late. I mean, he never looked, like, sensational there, but he really looks bad now. And I think even honestly, like, he can just strike with Gomi on the feet at this point. Like, Gomi's just going to wing that fastball right hand. So I hate this. John Tuck's going to be talking to Gomi, and it's bullshit.
Wes, John Tuck or Takanori Gomi?
I am going to be picking John Tuck in this one, and I feel kind of bad. Pretty much, I don't really want to be repetitive, but for the exact same reasons. And when John Tuck wins, I can at least say that I would have saw Takanori Gomi's last win in person. I watched him fight in Baltimore at UFC 172 against Isaac Valley Flag in a fight that was actually really awesome. That was the first ever and the only ever UFC card I've attended. And in person, it was just brutal. I mean, those two went swinging. But then again, when I lined them up in that fight, I remember looking at them at the end, and Valley Flag put a pretty decent beating on Gomi. Gomi's face was pretty battered, even though Gomi got the victory in that one. So maybe that was kind of the beginning of the end for Gomi in that regard. And now he was knocked out 3 times against decent competition in the past 3 fights. But John Tuck doesn't really have a lot of knockout victories and has struggled in the UFC. But I feel like this could be a fight that he could win just because Gomi does not really have a chin and is not the same fighter that he used to be. And for that reason, if I'm going to pick a fight between a fighter who I think who I like, who used to be good but doesn't have a chin, against a fighter who's not the greatest but has a better chin, I'm going to go with the fighter that doesn't really have the best, or isn't really the best, but at least is durable enough. And for that reason, I'm going to go John Tuck. I haven't picked by first round knockout, and I feel bad saying that. But it's hard, like I said, and I think you guys can agree, it's hard to pick a fighter who does not have a good chin to win in a fight that is near the later stages of his career.
Dude, it's hard to pick a fighter who, like, I believe the Gomi, I believe Gomi beat Isaac Valley Flag, but I know that there are people who think that he didn't. And so at that point, if you think he lost to Isaac Valley Flag, Gomi has not won a fight since 2012. That's like the same. Did BJ won, like, BJ's last one was like 2011 or some shit? And that was a split decision over freaking Mac Danzig, which I'm going to be honest, I don't recall this at all. I'm going to go check MMA decisions to see how that particular split decision was received, because I genuinely remember nothing about that fight.
I'm checking it out now. Luke Thomas scored at 29-28 for Danzig. So that's just an
Luke
idea
gave it
right
for
there.
Yeah, so I mean, the balance of MMA decision, people have him winning, but realistically, you could consider his last win to be in February of 2012 if you're a specific person, a knockout over Eiji Matsuoka. Like, damn, dude, damn.
Yeah, not looking too pretty for the Fireball Kid. I guess I got to complete the hat trick and go with John Tuck, the Super Saiyan in this fight. His grappling is going to be too much for Takanori Gomi, and it's going to look kind of like his Gomi's last 3 fights. I don't think it's going to be as brutal because Tuck isn't as good as Joe Lozon, Jim Miller, or Miles Jury, but Tuck is good enough to still beat a shot Takanori Gomi. Tuck, it's interesting. Tuck hasn't looked good himself his last 2 fights. The losses to Josh Emmett and Damian Brown. He's looked really not like John Tuck. He, stood up real straight, low output, just did not look good at all. So if that, Gomi, I mean, maybe I'm just trying to playing with my head and trying to come up with the reason why Gomi has a chance. But Tuck should win. Tuck is the better grappler, should be able to get Gomi down, and from there, it's, the beginning and the end. So I don't know exactly how this is going to end, whether Gomi somehow survives and goes to a decision, but most likely Tuck does get a finish before 15 minutes. So Tuck by finish is my pick. All right. UFC Fight Night, Fight Pass, 4-fight main card. Got some background music. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but
I did.
All right.
Very lovely.
All right. First up, Tarek Safdie, number 11 in the welterweight division, taking on number 5 lightweight, former UFC lightweight champion, Rafael dos Anjos, arguably the best fight on the card. Jed, we'll start with you. Are you going to go with the 16-6 Tarek Safdie or the 25-9 RDA?
Man, this fight, I agree. I think this fight is the best fight on the card. And it's a fight. We talked about this not that long ago when we were filming the MMA Circus. Everybody give that a listen this week. Once again, your boy back in the saddle riding co-pilot. But anyway, we talked about this a minute ago, you and I, but I'm really excited about this fight, man. I have this theory that basically the best divisions in MMA are featherweight and lightweight. And the further you get away from those divisions on either end, the worse the fighters are for the most part. I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule, but so if you can credibly fight in any of those other divisions, if you're in a top shelf or a very good fighter in, featherweight or lightweight, and you can fight and compete in one of the other divisions, it helps you dramatically. And I point to Donald Cerrone, I point to Kelvin Gastelum. Like, both of those guys are top 10, lightweights and welterweights respectively. And then they move up a division, and Donald Cerrone puts together this incredible run at the welterweight division. And mostly, I think some of that can be attributed to improvements, and I think a lot of it can be attributed to he's fighting a lot tougher competition in lightweight, and he goes up and fights easier people who are a little bit bigger, but still, when you have a depth of skill, size doesn't matter nearly as much. And the same with Kelvin Gastelum. Like, middleweight's a trash-ass division compared to welterweight. And so when he goes up, he's just a very, very good middleweight, because most middleweights are not as good as welterweights. So I think that I think Rafael dos Anjos can be in that category. Like, he's one of the best lightweights on the planet. Certainly a top 10 guy. That division is so deep, though. Like, it's hard to know where in the top 10 he is in general. But he's a former champion. Is good but not great welterweight. I think there's every possibility that RDA jumps up in weight and looks sensational and puts together a run in the honestly pretty shallow welterweight division, not unlike Cerrone did or George Masvidal has been doing. And I would pick Dos Anjos to beat Cerrone if they fought a third time, like I think everybody would. At the same time, though, I do have some concerns here. My biggest one being, I think Dos Anjos is on a physical decline. I think we started to see that in the Eddie Alvarez fight just a little bit, and I think that it was it became even more apparent in the Tony Ferguson fight. And I don't know how steep or how sharp that is. And I also don't know if that will really come into play against Safadine, who's not like some world beater of an athlete. He's just more of a technical fighter. And the last thing I'll say about this is the style matchup here is interesting to me. I don't think Dos Anjos can take Safadine down reliably and consistently. RDA likes to pressure a lot. I think Safadine can play the matador here very well. I know Dos Anjos, I think, is maybe a little bit more powerful. I mean, he's definitely more powerful than Safadine, but I do think that maybe Safadine can make this ugly, or not ugly, but make this a harder fight for Dos Anjos than he wants it to be. I thought Safadine won his last fight against Jong Young Kim. I scored at 30-27. I know Kim ended up getting the win there. But and we're going to talk about the stun gun in just a second here. But, I don't know. There's a lot of variables. I'm really interested. I wish this fight was 5 rounds. I sort of wish it was the main event. I understand why it's not, but, I just do sort of wish that was the case. I am going to take Tarek Safadine here. And I might well regret this. It may be a really stupid pick. But basically, I just sort of think maybe Dos Anjos is on the decline here. I think Safadine's a rough stylistic matchup for him. I think Safadine's eternally underrated. And over 3 rounds, I think he can maybe play the matador against Dos Anjos a little better. If this were 5 rounds, I'm probably picking RDA for his pressuring style to wear down and kind of confound Safadine enough. But I think Safadine can maybe stick and move, keep him on the outside, chip away with, just pot shots on a little bit more volume than RDA throws, a little bit better, tighter defense. So Safadine.
Just for what it's worth, Jed picked RDA on the MMA circus less than 2 hours ago.
I did. I thought it'd be fun to mix it up.
And wherever on your podcast, The Naked Truth, you're probably going to say this fight doesn't happen. Wes, RDA or Tarek Safadine?
I like a lot of the things you said, Jed. And 2 of the bigger things I liked were how you said RDA is on a physical decline. I agree with that. And it has been noticeable, especially in that last fight. And also the other thing, I completely forgot. Actually, here's something else. A lot of the times fighters jump up in weight. They tend to improve in some regards. And I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know if I'm ridiculous in saying that or if there's a statistic that can back me up. But I feel like just thinking about a lot of different fighters who've jumped up in weight, I feel like they're able to make improvements in their game. Robert Whittaker is probably the biggest one. Cowboy's a good one. So there's 2 right there. Connor became champion at lightweight instead of fighting at featherweight. So there's 3 right off the bat. So maybe RDA jumping up in weight. Gastelum, another one. There's a bunch of different fighters, and I feel like RDA might do a little bit better and more comfortable in this weight class. I am going to be picking RDA I have him by a decision, and I think there's 2 things for it. And here's the other thing I was going to say, what I like, Jed, is that you said RDA likes to pressure. And the thing about Tarek Safadine is that he doesn't really tend to do well when he's under pressure, and that's because he is such a technical fighter and a technical boxer. So, and just kind of thinking about that, Rick Story was one fighter able to do that, and Rory McDonald in his fight, 2 fighters that were able to implement that pressure and be able to score victories in those fights. When Tarek is sitting back technical against fighters who may not like to push in too hard, like a Nate Marquardt or a Jake Ellenberger, he was able to capitalize and get victories in that. But another one, of course, Tyron Woodley, who was able to get a victory back in the Strikeforce. So there, I feel like RDA is going to be that fighter to give some pressure. I question his chin. We don't know if Tarek could be able to maybe land a good, powerful shot. But then again, Tarek Safadine hasn't had a finish since 2010, and some of the competition he's fought since then, even those who aren't really the best, he wasn't able to finish them either back in the Strikeforce days. So I'm going to be going RDA. I haven't picked by decision. I think this could be a pretty decent fight. But then again, I don't know if Tarek's going to be able to pull it off just because I think RDA's pressure might be a little bit too much. So I'm going to take RDA by a unanimous decision victory, coming out victorious in his, I guess, debut at the welterweight division.
Yeah, I like Caulfield.
I'm changing my pick.
Nah, we gotta have a.
Wes talked me into it. I'm going back to RDA.
You gotta you don't want to stick to your gut.
I mean, my gut told me RDA, and then I thought, oh, it'll be fun here, and so I changed to Safadine. But
you don't want to keep it
here.
interesting in picks.
No, because I want to win the fucking picks crown this week.
I feel you. I would do the same thing.
I already made a stupid pick in picking Johnny Kim, and I know nothing about her, so
yeah, you're already down
can't afford
one,
another
so.
stupid pick.
Have we been the same for? Where have we been different? Look at the pick so far.
I picked Kim. Both of y'all picked Pudilova. Wes picked Hokwak. You and I picked Doan. Everything else was the same one.
All right. Well, we'll be same for this one as well. I'm going half of those Anjos. He's just, as a fighter, he's better than Tarek Safdien. Tarek Safdien always underperforms. I pick him to knock out Jake Ellenberger because Ellenberger's shot. Yet he gets a decision win. I pick him to beat, whoever, and he loses.
Tarek Safdien to knock out Jake Ellenberger, but not Mike Perry? What the fuck is wrong with you, dude?
Well, maybe it influenced me because then I figured, Ellenberger has good chin, but he just didn't actually get hit. But yes, that did happen. Yes, that did happen. Anyways, to my point though, Safdien does underperform. He never looks as good as you expect him to, and that's kind of he was expected to go so far. Yet he's always been a top 10 to top 15 guy. I don't see him, moving from that position other than downwards for, ever in his career going forward. And I don't think he gets any higher than, like, say, number 10 or so. Dos Anjos, I was a little surprised that Safdien is actually the same height as RDA. I thought Safdien would have a bit of a size advantage, which would help him, but that is not the case. He is 1 inch taller, but that is nothing. RDA is... He's more powerful. I like RDA at welterweight a lot. I think he can do very well, as you guys said. I think, not having to cut those extra 15 pounds will help. And I think welterweight's the worst division in the lightweight, as Jed said. So I agree with Jed's sort of theory as to why, lightweight's moving up or anyone moving up does better. So I expect Dos Anjos to win here. I think he just outpointed Safdien on the feet in a pretty entertaining and back and forth fight. I think it'll be fairly close. But Safdien, his output lacks sometimes. Dos Anjos is, fairly good, and he, has the ability to take a fighter down, to take Safdien down. It's not like he's just a striker, basically, like Safdien. Dos Anjos, I don't necessarily think he'll get Safdien down. Safdien has a good takedown defense, but the opportunity is there, and if he catches Safdien, not thinking or in some sort of situation, there's a chance he could get a takedown, and he has fairly good wrestling, and his ground and pound's not bad as well. We saw that in the Pettis fight back a couple years back. So yeah, my pick's RDA, the former lightweight champion. I like him quite a bit. The odds are steep for every fight on this card, it seems. So not that confident, but I think Dos Anjos comfortably gets a decision win here. Alrighty, moving on, we got the stun gun, Dong Hun Kim, number 7 in the welterweight division, taking on unranked up-and-comer 11-1 Colby Chaos Covington. Jed, Colby Covington, or Dong Hun Kim, who do you got here?
This is also actually a really good fight. That Covington was trying to get that fight with Dos Anjos, which probably a tougher test for him than this in general. But I still think this is a big jump up for Colby Covington. Like, his previous wins are Brian Barberena. I don't even recall off the top of my head who else, but Max Griffin. And then he got that. Who did he lose to?
Warley Alves.
Yeah, lost to Warley Alves. That's right. He's a wrestler. He's a wrestle boxer. Like, that's what he does. You lose back in the day at college. And then moved back at like JUCO or whatever, right? Or community college, something like that. And then made the transition, I think, into D1. But I don't think maybe he was an All-American. I'm honestly not certain at this point. And it's getting late and I'm exhausted. So I'm going to keep it a little briefer in the fact that I think this is a huge step up in competition for him. Stun Gun is a really good fighter. And he's an awesome fighter, and we should all love Stun Gun for being this awesome, great fighter. I think he's fought better people than Covington is. And if Stun Gun loses, I think it's because he is much older, and Colby Covington is, he's not the new breed, but he's just a younger crop of fighter, and Stun Gun's going to start being in that, slow decline category. But from a technical perspective, I think Kim can win this fight, and I'm picking him to. I think he's got some physical advantages here. He's going to be the bigger man. He is an enormous welterweight in general. I think he can absolutely stop the wrestling game of Covington. And I do sort of think that Covington relies on his wrestling to an extent that will hurt him. Like, he's going to have to box to win this fight. I don't know that he can do it against a bigger, longer southpaw who gets a bit wild at times, but still, like, it's not like Covington's some sort of fucking technician or some bullshit in here. I think this fight might end up being kind of a brawly slobber knocker on the feet because Kim will sort of want to engage a brawl, and I don't think Covington's technical enough to, not do that. I think Kim might even surprise with a takedown or two of his own. A very underrated wrestler. I'm taking Stun Gun Kim in the upset here by decision, maybe a 29-28 variety, back and forth affair. But yeah, give me Dong Hyun Kim.
Alrighty, and Wes, do you agree? Do you like the underdog here, Dong Hyun Kim, or do you think Colby Covington keeps the winning streak alive?
I'm actually kind of liking Colby Covington in this one, and I'll kind of give a few reasons why. One of the bigger things that I saw was that in Dong Hyun Kim's last fight, now Kim hasn't really been that active in the past couple of years. We saw him fight Tyron Woodley in a fight that he lost, and he's on a good fight, 3-fight win streak, but that win streak's been elongated back since May 2015. But one of the things that I saw was that in Dong Hyun Kim's last fight, when he was fighting Tarek Saffiedine, who is a pretty – I think Tarek's a black belt in BJJ, so he's pretty good on the ground. But one thing I've never seen Tarek do is look for takedowns. And Dong Hyun Kim had always been a pretty good defensive wrestler. But in that fight, Tarek took him down I don't know how many times, but I felt like it was more than one. And I think a lot of people thought Tarek won in that one. And I don't think Tarek has ever shot for a takedown in the UFC or maybe even strike force before that fight. I think he maybe took down Nate Marquardt once in their fight, but besides that, Tarek has never really been an offensive wrestler, and he was able to take Dong Hyun Kim down a couple times. So against a guy like Colby Covington, who's an unbelievable wrestler, probably one of the best wrestlers in the welterweight division, there's just such a difference in there between who's a better wrestler between Covington and Tarek Saffiedine. Of course, it's going to be Colby Covington, who I guess wrestled back in maybe Oregon State. I don't know if I'm right on that one, but you may have to fact check me.
That sounds right.
But yeah, Colby Covington, Oregon State, yep. So, and Covington has landed so many takedowns in his career. His striking game has never really been the best, but it's still evolving. I feel like he might be able to grind out a pretty decisive 30-27 victory, but that's only if he's able to take Dong Hyun Kim down. I think the striking advantage will go to Dong Hyun Kim. I think it's a little more technical. I don't think Covington's really there yet, but Covington's one hell of an athlete, and for that reason, I think he's going to be able to get the victory. He's just such a grinder and but a very entertaining and a tough grinder. So I feel like he might be able to get the victory in that one. So I'm going to go Covington by a unanimous decision victory.
I like Colby Covington here as well. I think he's favored for a reason. Dong Hyun Kim, he's a better striker, but Covington, big advantage on the mat. Very, very good wrestler. Very good takedowns. The guy's getting better each and every day. He's a lot younger than the Stun Gun. You could argue that Kim is slowly going down. He's been in the sport for a little while. And I forgot to mention, but I think Dos Anjos, I agree with you guys, is slowly declining as well. But back to this fight. Covington, he's more athletic than Dong Hyun Kim. The size advantage does worry me. But, ultimately, I think Covington's probably the stronger guy, despite Kim being the bigger guy. Kim does have a 3-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. That's kind of important when you're talking about a striker versus a wrestler. It'll definitely, Covington's going to have a tough time getting Kim to the mat, but I ultimately think he does find a way to get the Korean down to the mat. And from there, that's sort of not the beginning of the end, but that's where Covington obviously wants to be, and that's where he's going to shine. I do think Covington, his striking is getting better. He's working in the American Top Team. He's been training there for a little while, and he's working with some of the best boxing coaches in the world, Chuck Eyes and Billy Patton. So, his striking, I saw in his last fight against Brian Barberena, a lot of, most of the fight was on the ground, grinding Barberena out. But from feet, a lot better than before. I think, that improvements are just going to go up from here. I think Connington to be a fairly well-rounded guy, and he's going to do really well. So I'm quite high on Covington. Give me him by unanimous decision against the stun gun, Dong Hyun Kim. Alrighty, moving on. We got the co-main event of the evening. In a heavyweight battle, we got number 8, Andre the Pit Arlovski, taking on number 13, Marcin Tybura. What a creative nickname from Marcin Tybura. All right, Jed, are you going to go with the Pitbull former champ 25-14, 1 no contest, or does the favorites here, betting favorite, the poll 15-2, number 13, Marcin Tybura, get the job done?
I'm going to keep this real short. Andre Arlovski has lost 4 in a row. Andre Arlovski can't get hit in the face anymore. Like, I love Andre Arlovski. He seems like a really cool dude, aside from being at one point, one of the best fighters in the world. If he and John Dodson made a buddy cop TV show on Fight Pass, I'd watch that forever and ever because it sounds delightful. But dude just can't do it anymore. Like, that's just it. Like, it's nothing. There's nothing wrong. No shame in that game, man. But like, he's on a 4-fight losing streak. It's not the first 4-fight losing streak of his career, though. If you'll remember when he left the UFC, after that, I don't even remember. He went on sort of a run, left the UFC, got sort of a bullshit win over Roy Nelson in Elite XC. Then he fought Fedor. Like, when Fedor punched him out of the air, he went on a 4-fight losing streak there. Lost to Burt Rogers, lost to Bigfoot, lost to Karatanov. All of them kind of sad, depressing losses for him. And that's sort of, everybody's seen that might be it. That's it. He went and fought in Pro Elite, picked up some wins over real middling competition, made it back to WSOF. Rumble Johnson beat him, which was kind of surprising that went to decision considering his chin and Johnson's power. But then after the Johnson loss, he made a resurgence, and it was awesome. It was a really great thing. I thought, damn, in the year of our Lord 2015, he might sneak his way to a title shot, after he won a decision of Frank Mir, after that fight of the year-ish candidate with Travis Brown. Then he ran Stephen Miocic, got obliterated, and that was it. And then since then, Alistair Overeem, Josh Barnett, and Francis Ngannou, like, all of that's high-level, top-shelf competition. Tybura is not on that level of fighter, but like, it doesn't have to be. Like, he's done, man. He's done. He's almost 40. He never had like, I think that I think his chin gets blasted more than it deserves. I don't think he has a bad chin. I think he has an average chin, but it's the heavyweight division. And so that type of like being tough is an underlying factor in like greatness in MMA fighters in general, just like durability is. But I think that's even more important in the heavyweight division, and he lacked that. So it doesn't matter that he's way better athlete than damn near everybody in the division, or that he's more technical than most people in the division. You don't have the chin, and he doesn't have it anymore. Tybura is not like some world beater. Tybura is never going to fight for a title. But he can throw hands well enough and with enough pop to knock Andre Arlovski out. And I hope Arlovski proves me wrong. I hope he lands the first shot, and that's the game. But it's, if you're picking Andre Arlovski, you're a brave motherfucker at this point. Like, Tybura KO or round 1.
Wes, do you agree? Are you going to go with Marcin Tybura, the sizable favorite here, or do you like Andre Arlovski, former champion, for the upset?
Yeah, I agree with Jed on this one. It's hard to pick Andre Arlovski, and even the wins that he's had since he came back in the UFC, they've been good, but they haven't really impressed me too much. It all started with that win when he had a split decision victory over Brendan Schaub. And just to say this, he only landed 12 punches in a 15-round fight at heavyweight and beat Brendan Schaub, who was able to land only 30 with a takedown. So when you land 12 punches and win a 3-round fight at heavyweight, that's that's a little fishy. But he was able to beat Bigfoot, who didn't have TRT when they were on their fight, and a guy who needs it, was able to knock out Travis Brown in a slobber knocker, and then pulled off a very tight, debatable win over Frank Mir, then lost 4 in a row. I think that Marcin Tybura is a pretty decent physical athlete. He's a pretty strong and durable dude and just has questionable takedown defense, but I don't think Arlovsky is going to be looking for takedowns since he's only landed 3 in his entire UFC and Strikeforce career. So if this fight stays standing, I've got to get it to Marcin Tybura. I like his striking abilities. I also like it on the ground in his favor since he is what I believe a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, a brown belt. Never mind, not a black belt, but he does have some medals in BJJ. So Tybura is a pretty, I wouldn't say a great mixed martial artist, but a pretty decent athlete. And Arlovsky going off on this 4-fight losing streak, I think that putting him against a guy who is a pretty decent athlete may be trouble for him. So I'm going to take Marcin Tybura. I have him picked by a second round knockout.
Alrighty. I'm still a believer. I'm still a believer of the Pitbull. I think he might be able to get the job done here. I'm going Andrei Arlovsky. Now, the thing is here is that he's still, as of today, he's a better fighter than Marcin Tybura. And I think, even Jed sort of alluded to that. I think we can probably all agree with that. He just doesn't have a chin. If Marcin Tybura...
Or left hand.
Well, yeah, if Tybura lands clean on Andrei Arlovsky is probably going down, and Tybura will follow up with some ground and pound, and that'll be that. So my pick is all about whether, this whole fight is all about whether or not Arlovsky gets cracked, and whether or not, whether or not that happens. I don't think Tybura is that great of a striker. He's decent. He's not fantastic. He's getting better, but he's mostly a grappler. He's a good grinder. Besides a knockout shot that, Arlovsky can't take, Tybura's best chance in this fight is to actually take Arlovsky down. Arlovsky doesn't really have much on the match. He's mostly a striker, and Tybura could grind him out there. I think most people, in this fight in general, most people are on Tybura, and most people have him just by knockout on the feet. But stylistically, Tybura's best chance is by taking him down. Arlovsky, I don't necessarily think Tybura is going to look for that early. I think he probably has confidence in his knockout power to finish Arlovsky on the feet. And that's kind of going to play into Arlovsky's game in a way. Arlovsky, in my opinion, he's not going to get hit. And obviously, sort of just, flip a coin and, take a risk, so to speak. But Arlovsky's the better athlete. Sure, he's older, but he's lighter on his feet. He's the better striker. He's more technical. He's a better all-around fighter. And I'm going to favor that over a guy who I haven't, seen tons of, a decent fighter, not great. He's never going to fight for the title, as Jed said. I favor, sure, okay, bad chin means a lot. That can be the difference of, a win and a loss, obviously, very quickly. But when you have advantages and, technically, I still favor that quite a bit. I like Andrei Arlovsky here. I don't think he finishes Tybura. Tybura has a decent chin. He's tough. I think Arlovsky takes this one to decision. I think he gets the job done. I think he gets back into the winning column. Give me the Pitbull by unanimous decision. Alrighty, with that, let's move on to the main event. Holly Holm versus Bethe Correia. Holly Holm, the former UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion, returning to the Bantamweight division after her one-fight stint in the barely existing featherweight division against Germaine Ranamy for the inaugural title. Taking on Bethe Correia. Bethe Correia, what did she do last? The draw against Marion Renault, I believe. That was an interesting fight. Jed, do you like the Preacher's Daughter, the former champ, or do you think Pitbull, yet another Pitbull, here we go. Do you think Bethe Correia can pull off the big upset?
Before we get to that, somebody remind me what happened in the Correia Renault fight, because I was just looking up old MMA decision scores. I'm really proud of my scorecard for the Holm Germaine Ranamy fight. I scored 48-45 for Holly Holm, because I took I took points away from Jermaine Durandamy for her very clearly illegal strikes that the ref just decided to not give a fuck about. So I took 2 points for that, and so I had Holly Holm winning by a very large margin. I'm the only person in that particular category. But I've got the Renault. I'm also the only person who scored it 28-27 Renault.
How
But
did I
do
have
not-
that one scored?
You had it 29-27 Renault.
Mm.
Wes, you also had it 29-27 Renault. I don't remember a goddamn thing from that fight, though.
What I can tell you what happened. The first round, I think, went to Renault. The second round, I'm pretty sure Betch was able to land some pretty decent strikes and maybe hurt her at one point. And then the last round, I think I scored it a 10-8 for Renault because she pretty much ground and pound her after she dropped her for pretty much the entire round.
That, I mean, I guess that sounds like that must be right then. That I just gave Correia a 10-8 round for round 2 if she dropped Renault or something. I don't know. I just don't know why I have a 28-27. Maybe I just fucked up the scoring or something here. Maybe it was supposed to be 29. I don't know, but I was just looking at that and that's weird. I have a lot of weird scorecards, but that seemed weird even for me. But yeah, to the point at hand, which is this fight. Nick, you and I talked about it before. I think I say this every time Betch Correia fights. I'm way less down on Betch Correia than everybody else does. I think that at first, yeah, she wasn't a very good fighter. I still don't think she's a phenomenal fighter because she's not a very good athlete, and that just caps what she can do. I think she's improved dramatically, and I think she has made the most of a very limited set of abilities. She's the type of fighter I respect the hell out of because she finds ways to win despite being outgunned in general in any contest she's in. And she's tough and she throws a bunch and she is active and tries. She gives a shit, and giving a fuck that's a hell of a trait to have in MMA. Doesn't matter here. Holly Holm's better than her everywhere, and Holly Holm's probably going to beat her up. Holly Holm has been on a very rough skid. Everybody knows it. 3-fight losing streak. The Miesha Tate win or loss was insane. I think if they fought 10 times out of 10, I just don't think Miesha ever gets that again. I think something was just in the air that night. Not that Holly is unbeatable or whatever, but Holly's a very exploitable fighter on the ground. We saw that, but she has to get it there. Tate got 2 takedowns, and the second one was enough to seal it. I don't think that ever. She was beating the hell out of Miesha Tate. Other than that, though, other than the 2 takedowns, it was awesome. It was one of my favorite moments in MMA. I'm not a huge Miesha Tate fan, but that comeback was just sensational. And again, I thought if they ran that fight back immediately, Holly Holm wins. I thought she was going to lose to Valentina Shevchenko because I think Valentina Shevchenko is the best fighter on the planet that's female that's not named Chris Cyborg. And arguably is a better fighter than Chris Cyborg because Chris Cyborg doesn't beat anybody up that matters. And Valentina Shevchenko is the best women's 125er and 135er on the planet in my eyes. So no shame in losing that. That's just a hellacious style matchup for Holly Holm. Similarly, the Jermaine Durandamy fight is a pretty bad style matchup for her. Really close fight. I thought she won, especially with Jermaine Durandamy cheating her fucking ass off. But 3 losses in a row. I like that this is a fight that has some stakes, but Holly Holm can win. Holly Holm should win. Holly Holm is a dramatically better athlete. Unbelievable the athletic gap here. Better technical fighter. If she wants to, she can wrestle Betch Correia. I think she can beat her anywhere it goes. And I actually think Holly Holm's going to get a stoppage. I know that if Holly Holm underperforms in this fight, we have to start seriously considering that maybe Ronda Rousey was just a perfect storm for her because she hasn't looked good beyond the Tate fight and the Rousey fight. Obviously, she ended up going to sleep against Tate. But other than that, her UFC career before the Rousey fight, everybody was like, man, she really hasn't looked that good in the UFC. Ryan Renault kind of took her hammer and tongs and shit. And so maybe it's just wow, that was a confluence of events that Rousey had the target forever and everybody prepped to beat her and she just did that. But I don't think it's going to be the case because I think Betch Correia is going to try and force the issue on Holly a bunch. I think Holly's just a much better fighter when she is able to react. When Holly's good, and not that she's not very good, but I think that she's definitely uncomfortable there. And can't. That's not how she wants to or can do that dance. But she's impatient, and so will force the lead. If being stuck there, she's not going to stare and wait to counter. Ronda just ran fucking face first at her, and so it didn't matter. Like, she didn't have to. She got to play Matador and box her up. I think Betch Correia is going to do similar. I think she's going to come in, get in her face, put the pressure on her, put a bunch of hands there. Betch doesn't have good defense. I think Holly's going to mark her the fuck up. I wouldn't be surprised if she got her out of there under 3 rounds, but with 5 rounds to work, I think she's going to land a lot of punches on her. She doesn't have a ton of natural power, Holly Holm, but you keep hitting somebody coming forward, eventually they're going to fall. I think Holm gets a stoppage late, TKO from strikes. I'm saying early 4th round. Early 4th round.
Alrighty, Wes, do you like the former bantamweight champion Holly Holm, or does Betch Correia pull off the big upset?
Correia has a fighting style where I feel like she can make it a dirty fight, but there are a couple of reasons why I don't think she's going to come out victorious in this one. One of the bigger ones is because Holly Holm is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage and also like a 3-inch height advantage, so she's a much bigger athlete. When it comes to that too, the two fighters in comparison, who utilizes their strikes better? It's got to be Holly Holm because she's such a great kickboxer. She fights and keeps her opponents guessing every single time she throws a kick or a punch, while Betch is more kind of running in, trying to look for combinations, uptight boxing, and trying to land powerful shots. And she's not really the strongest fighter either, but Betch runs in quite a bit. And Jed, you mentioned it's going to be what I think probably similar to what happened in the Ronda Rousey fight, where I feel like Betch is just going to run forward. I think Holm is smart enough to be able to get out of those exchanges, utilizing her reach, but also utilizing the cage, circling out. She does like to fight backwards, and maybe Betch could capitalize that on some of the earlier rounds. But the thing is that when it comes to cardio as well, I think Holm has the ability. She's had the experience, too, going longer in her fights, at least going those 5 rounds. She's also what I think at a better fight camp, or at least one that she's fighting and training with more prestigious athletes over Betch Correia. I actually have the exact same pick. I have Holly Holm by a 4th-round knockout. I don't think it'll come early because Holm is not really the strongest fighter, but I do think that she has the technicality and the abilities to possibly hurt Betch later, because we've seen, too, with Betch, once she gets hit a couple times, she tends to react and show that she's in some kind of pain and react from some of the punches and in just a way that you can tell that she's hurt. And we saw that, of course, in the Marianne Renault fight where she pretty much got battered. Some people thought that was a 10-7 in the last round, but I think Holly Holm will have the ability to just be able to hang in there in the later rounds. I think Betch will probably slow down just a little bit, and Holly Holm will capitalize in the later round. I don't think it'll come early, and I think Holly Holm will get her first victory back. But Holm is still a decent athlete. Her losses, they've been against decent competition. I mean, Miesha Tate, of course, a fight that she was winning. Shevchenko, who's debatably one of the greatest female athletes of all time, and Germaine de Randamie. I'm sorry?
Damn straight.
Oh, yeah. Dude, Shevchenko is probably the most underrated female athlete to ever step foot inside of the octagon in mixed martial arts. I think she might be one of the greatest fighters in female history. She's just unbelievable athlete. And Holm held in there for 5 rounds and showed some decent strikes. She landed, I think, a pretty decent strike in the first round, but maybe that was her only successful one. And then Holm lost to Germaine, who Germaine is pretty much an identical fighter to her. And that was a really close fight, in a fight that I thought Holly Holm was able to win, but didn't get it on the scorecards. I'm going to take Holly Holm just to keep it short. Well, now I've already talked a little bit, but I've got her picked by a 4th-round knockout to stop Betch Correia in what could be a fight of the night for all we know, since this is a 5-rounder between 2 fighters who are probably looking to put it all on the line to get a victory here.
Well, if Derek Lewis and Mark Hunt was fighting tonight, anything could be fighting tonight. Betch Correia, she has developed into actually a half okay fighter. She, people made fun of her at one point earlier, for being just so bad, but she's actually turned into a decent fighter, but she's still really, really outclassed against Holly Holm. Holly Holm is a lot bigger, as Wes mentioned. She's the better striker by miles and miles and miles, and throw a couple kilometers in there as well. Betch Correia doesn't really.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
It's what Canadians use because we're cool. A cool kilometer.
Some made up bullshit right there.
Yeah. Whole world except for the USA uses the metric system. So
Yeah, whole world used monarchies and tyranny until we invented freedom. So fuck what the rest of the world does.
all right, fair point.
America.
Quick question about Canada. Do you know what anniversary this July 1st is? What number?
I don't know a goddamn thing about Canada.
Where is Canada?
I don't know. I don't think it's a real place.
I think it's your 3rd anniversary. Didn't you guys did legitimately though, like legit for reals? Didn't you guys like separate from the Queen like not terribly long ago?
Well, the Queen is technically still connected
Is she
to
still on
Canada.
your money?
She's on the coins.
Way to go, guys! Strong effort.
she's still the reps Canada, which is kind of crazy, but oh well. Anyways, Holly Holm, Betch Correia, back to what I was saying. Holly Holm, unless she's like totally mentally not there and retirement is only her like on her mind and all of that, unless that's the one concern I have about Holly Holm. She certainly hasn't done well. That has to take an impact or like take a toll on you, and she's talked about that before. Mentally, I have to assume she'll be all right. So I have to assume a good Holly Holm will show up. Maybe not the one that knocked out Ronda Rousey. That seemed to be been there, like was there at the right time sort of situation, as Jed sort of mentioned. But Holly Holm should beat Betch Correia very easily. Correia, I guess her best part of her game is her striking, yet Holly Holm again is kilometers ahead of Correia in the striking department. Obviously a former boxing champion, kickboxer, all of that. Yeah, I mean it's a fairly simple fight. Holly Holm should just box and kickbox Correia up for 5 rounds. I don't see a stoppage. Holly Holm, she's only had one finish in UFC out of her handful of UFC victories, and I see it being a fairly safe, unanimous decision win. Maybe like the Marion Renault fight, maybe like the Raquel Pennington fight. I don't really see it being that close. Holly Holm, 50-45, unanimous decision. I think that's kind of how it's going to go. Again, don't see a stoppage. She, sure, if she lands a head kick right on the Correia's melon, yeah, maybe, but not so sure about that. I got Holly Holm by decision, dominant decision. I think she shows up for this fight. She knows she needs a big win here. I think she'll get it, but I think I don't see it being that fun. I don't think it's going to be that back and forth again. I think it's going to be one-sided. I don't think we're going to see a whole ton of action. I think it's going to, be fairly lackluster. But good to see, though, the Preacher's Daughter getting back into the winning column, as we're all predicting. Well, that does it for this entire card, UFC Fight Night 111 in Singapore on UFC Fight Pass. And if you're in Canada, you get to watch the main card on cable TV, so can't complain about that. You should all move to Canada. Starts at 4:45 a.m. Eastern, 1:45 Pacific. The main card begins at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific. Have fun with all of that, everybody. All right, let's go through what we have to do. DraftKings bonuses. So we'll do bonuses first. Wes, we'll start with you. Who do you got for fight of the night and performances of the night?
I don't know about you all, but I think this is going to be a hard 3 performances. I guess 4 fighters, but 3 performances to give out. But I'll take my best guess. I'm going to give my fight of the night what I think will be I'll go Tarek Saffiedine, Rafael dos Anjos. I think maybe y'all can agree on that one. I think that'll be a pretty decent fight. And then I'm going to give my 2 performances to Marcin Tybura for stopping Andrei Arlovski, even though Andre doesn't really have the best chin in the world. I think Marcin will be able to get it done, and people will be impressed. And I think Walt Harris will get one for knocking out Cyril Asker. What I think could come early. By the way, I think Walt Harris's knockout over his last fight against Chase Sherman was actually probably my favorite knockout, besides the flying knee with Paul Daly of probably in the UFC so far this year. So I was really impressed with Walt Harris's last knockout. So maybe he'll get another performance with this fight against Cyril. So we'll see.
Alrighty, Jed, who do you got for fight of night and your 2 performances?
And because fun fact for you guys, last 4 fights, all of them defeats. All 4 times he's been on the wrong side of a performance of the night bonus. So I'm gonna have Machine Tabura on my team as well as or my performance bonus as well, because that's just a trend you should get behind. I think. As far as other,
Arlovsky by decision. Book it.
well, that's your hill to die on. As far as other performance bonuses, I'm trying a way to not put Walt Harris in because I think Walt Harris is probably going to have a big impressive KO here. I could go, since I'm gonna do maybe a minor upset for that. I'm gonna go with you and just say Walt Harris as well. For my other performances of night bonus, the only other choice I would have picked would have been Holly Holm, but I'm not gonna do that because I'm saying Holly Holm bet Correia for fight of the night. I agree. I think Safadine Dos Anjos is the fight I'm most interested in. I think that fight could end up being boring. Um, a fight like Scoggins Sasaki could be really fun, really
Oh, I
interesting.
forgot about that. Oh well.
Yeah, or something. Any of the undercard fights, like the Kwon Kwok fight, Russell Doan could end up being a really fun fight. Same with Camacho, Jingliang, Lee. But basically, what I learned last week is just always bet fight of the night for main events, because 5 rounds is more than 3. Because it's the main event, so it feels more important. And so I'm just going to go with that. If Betch can stay around for a little bit, maybe that fight's more interesting. I'm picking that for my main event or for my fight of the night. What about you, Nick? What's your choices?
The most intriguing fight is Safadine Dos Anjos, but I'm kind of with you. Safadine doesn't have a whole lot of fun back and forth fights as of late, if we're just being honest. He could make this one into a bit of a snoozer that Dos Anjos just clearly outpoints him in, or it could be back and forth. Maybe I would regret not picking it for fight of the night after initially planning to do so, but I'm going to change my pick. For fight of the night, this is tough. I'm starting to think Scoggins Sasaki could take it, but let's go out of left field a little bit and go Li Jingliang versus Frank Camacho for fight of the night. And then my two performances are going to go to Walt Harris and Alex Caceres.
Okay. Well, Nick, what about your DraftKings team? Because we're in the home stretch here.
Well, my DraftKings team looks like this. We got the Pitbull himself, not Bitcoheya, Andrei Arlovsky. We got Colby Covington. We have Hofffield Dos Anjos. We have Alex Caceres. We have Russell Doan. And then we just, had a fighter that don't know much about, but she was cheap enough to fit, and that's Lucy Pudilova. Let me know if I need to repeat any.
You set, dog.
Alrighty. So, just kind of, Arlovsky is a bit of a bold pick. Covington fairly confident. Dos Anjos confident. Caceres confident. Doan not too confident, but I do think he gets the job done. Pudilova, whatever. All right, Jed, who do you got for your DraftKings?
I'm just looking at my DraftKings team now, and I changed my mind. I don't feel confident I'm getting the belt back.
Good.
I am taking. I've got Walt Harris because I want him to get that big powerful win. I've got Holly Holm. I think if she goes 5 rounds, she's going to pile up points. If she gets a stoppage, she gets a stoppage. I've got Dong Young Kim. Basically, I've got everybody in this card is so expensive. You kind of all the favorites are. You have to pick some underdogs here. I'm picking Dong Young Kim to win over Colby Covington anyway. So just by virtue of that and the fact that he's cheap, I've got him on my team. Similar with Tarek Safadine, I think he can beat Rafael Dos Anjos, and maybe he puts together enough points. I needed somebody to cover the costs of the rest of my guys. Andrei Arlovsky is on my team for similar reasons. Also, because if he lands first, he can knock out Marcin Tybura. And then John Tuck, because Takomi is washed, and John Tuck's going to go Super Saiyan on him. So that's my squad. I super don't feel confident anymore. Wes, bring us home.
I gotcha. And I don't really know. I'm not that confident with mine either. Pretty much the same reasons. Expensive fighters. up near the top. But my team starts with four that I feel like could possibly get a victory. I've got Marcin Tybura. I have John Tuck, who I think will be able to stop Takanori Gomi. I have Kwan Ho Kwok. I think I was the only one of us three to pick him on the card, but he has definitely good abilities to where he could get a victory in that one. Walt Harris, just to throw a heavyweight on there, but that's always a risk. If he gets knocked out, then being a heavyweight won't probably get any points on that. Then I had to take 2 risks with picking guys who I think could get a victory, but are definitely big underdogs on this card. So I went with Rolando Dai and Frank Camacho. I think both of them have abilities to where they could possibly pull out a victory if they implement the right game plan.
Alrighty, that does it for episode 71 of Before the Battle. I'm Nick Baldwin. They are Jed Meshew and Wesley Riddle. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Jed, remind our audience where they can find you on social media, where they can find your writing, where they can find your podcast, and maybe podcast plural, and anything else you'd like to plug.
You can find me on social media on Twitter at JedK, JEDKMESHEW. Everything connects to that. My writing, MMAfighting.com. It's there every day. Even this weekend, you should check it out because I got short straw, low man on the totem pole duty. I will be doing live coverage for this event, which means I will be awake at 4 a.m. to do that. And then I think play-by-play for the main card for us. So check that out to at least make it worth my fucking while, hopefully. And I got a podcast with Twitter's MMA personality, The Naked Gambler, called The Naked Truth. You should totally check that out. This week we spoke with Brandon Gibson, famed striking coach from Jackson Winklejohn. Really fun conversation. No big deal. Best friends with Brandon Gibson now. He's trying to hook us up to maybe talk to a couple other fighters, maybe get me Holly Holm's phone number, just standard best friend things. Don't even worry about that. I also host another podcast called The MMA Circus. Just did some recording for that. That should be out in the next couple of days as soon as my producer gets off his lazy ass and, produces it. Next week we're going to have another one. So that's MMA Circus. You should check that out too. I'm a proficient podcaster. I've got 2 of them plus this. So 3 recording shows that I do. So check out all of my work and my writing. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always. Wes, what about you? Tell us where they can find you, the good people.
Oh, I gotcha. They can first start by following me on Twitter at All That MMA. That's where I do all my communication with you. Yes, you. Also, you can find some of my writing over at I like it. Over at MMAsucka.com. I like to post out matchmaking articles for who I think and who I know should be the next fighter for people that win at each card. Besides that, I guess I don't really have anything else to plug besides just watching our show.
No podcast takeovers?
Wait, what's up?
I just said no podcast takeovers like Jed.
Well, if you guys get me on a podcast, then I can plug the circus.
Flying Brian this week?
No, I had to actually leave out of town yesterday, so I could not do yesterday. So he had to fly solo. But Fight Nerds, make sure to check out Flying Brian's Fight Nerds over at MMA Mania. I'll try to be on the next week episode over there. So hopefully you can catch us doing that next week. And then
the takeover is starting. For
takeovers happen. Oh, it's all over, boys. And that's pretty much it. Thanks. Glad to break down some of the fights for a card. And make sure, I don't know if Nick, you're going to be up, but Jed and I are going to be watching at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday. So you better get on Twitter. Make sure to follow us both. And we're just going to have a good time. Jed, we might as well just have our own conversation. We're going to run the Twitter world all morning on Saturday.
Doing it, and I don't know. I'm so mad. I thought I was sleeping through this fucker. I had planned. I was like, I'm just gonna sleep through the whole damn thing. And wake up.
Told
at
us.
Noon. Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna wake up at noon and catch. Maybe I'll turn in for the main card, and then I get an email from our editor being like, Hey, can you do this? Fuck, I don't wanna. So.
Yeah, I'll probably be there. I'll make an appearance on the Twitter land at about 4:30. It's even worse because I'm an hour behind you guys, so it's 3:45 for me. So yeah,
rough.
My plan is get to bed 11 midnight maybe, although that's not happening. and then wake up, get a few hours of sleep. Because I mean, I've done the all-nighters, and then the worst was I stayed up for UFC South Korea. It was that was the Masvidal Bendo Henderson card. And then I did a podcast. I filled in for Kid Nate and Zane Simon with another Bloody Elbows, Mike Hutchinson. So we did the 6th round on no sleep at about noon the next day, and it was god awful. So, yeah, I'll make it though. I'll be there. I'll watch fights just because I'm stupid. Anyways, you guys can find me on the Twitter at NickUFC. You can find all of my writing over at BloodyElbow.com. You can find my podcast, not Jed's, at the MMA Circus on Bloody Elbow, iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, and on Google Play. I host it every other week with Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence. We talk fights. We have guests this past week. It'll be up tomorrow, tomorrow it'll be up. Episode 115. We had Claudio Pules on the show, UFC lightweight, who takes on Super Sage Northcutt, coming up later next month. UFC 212, 214 in Anaheim, California, July 29th. So be on the lookout for that. Not doing any writing this month. Got exams. It sucks, but it is what it is. I'll be back on the MMA grind. Obviously, like the writing grind or whatever, after that, so for in about 10 days or so. Anyways, thank you guys as always. We appreciate it. Enjoy the fights.
Love you guys.